Hey, good morning, Peninsula Grace Church. A couple Saturdays ago, I was on a hike with a few of our kids from the youth group, and we were hiking Slaughter Gulch Trail, if you know that trail. And if you do know that trail, you know it's pretty steep. It's a challenging one. It's a workout. But in addition to being a steep trail, it was also really hot that Saturday. There's not a cloud in the sky. The sun was beating down on us, and there is toward the top of that trail there is no shade. You're totally exposed to the sun. There's no trees around or anything, so the sun is beating down on us. We're hiking up this steep trail, and on top of that I have Micah, my son, on my back, and he's only 14 months old, but he is a pretty dense kid. He's not no light daisy. So I've got weight on my back, the sun's beating down, it's steep. I'm sweating, my legs, my quads, my glutes, they're burning. And it's at that point when I start to ask myself, how badly do I want to make it to the end of this trail, right? Is enduring to the end of this trail really worth it? How will it improve my life and my happiness for me to make it to the end of this trail? Or would it be better, would I be more happy if I just said, okay, you know what, I've had my fun hiking, I can turn around now. There's no reason for me to endure this any longer. Is endurance worth the pain? That's a question I had to ask myself. And that's really a question that we're constantly asking ourselves. It's not just when we're hiking or working out. It's a question that we ask ourselves probably 1,000 times a day, and a million different micro decisions that we make. We go to the grocery store, we see ice cream is $5. Is it worth $5? Is it worth me losing $5 to enjoy this ice cream? But it's a question that we must constantly ask ourselves, especially as we're trying to follow Jesus. Is endurance worth it? Is faithfully enduring for Christ's sake worth the pain? And we have to ask ourselves that because Jesus himself said, following me will not be easy. It will be hard. There will be pain. And we saw even on Sunday through Justin's sermon that Justin reminded us that following Jesus within the context of the church and in relationships is not easy. It requires us to step into messy, difficult situations and extend forgiveness to those who don't necessarily deserve it, and to confront those even when everything within us is telling us, I don't want to do this. That's what following Jesus means. It means messy, difficult, hard, sinful relationships. And it takes faithful endurance to consistently say no to sin and to pursue holiness and to pursue the life that God has designed for us. That's hard work. It takes faithful endurance to share the gospel, to speak the truth of the word of God into relationships, even when that means that people are not going to receive it and they're going to look down on us for sharing those things. But I think we can take comfort from the fact that Jesus himself had to answer this question. He had to answer this question: is faithful endurance worth it? Over the last few weeks in our sermon series and from our reading plan readings, we've seen that Jesus, he's beginning to turn the corner in his ministry. We read on Monday from chapter 17 where Jesus tells his disciples that he's about to head down to Jerusalem where he will suffer and die. And he'll make 3 of these kind of predictions as he prepares to head down to the capital city. We saw one in chapter 16, we see one in chapter 17, and then we'll see another one in chapter 20. He wants his disciples to know that things are going to get a lot worse before they get any better. Jesus is about to display faithful endurance. Is it worth it? But Jesus tells us that it will be worth it, that things will get better. He tells them that though he will suffer and be killed, he will be raised again on the 3rd day. He would defeat death. And Jesus' faithful endurance to the bitter end on the cross would be worth all the pain. And Jesus' victory over death guarantees that our faithfulness, that as we seek to follow him in faithful endurance for his sake, it will be worth it as well. About a month ago, did you notice that the birch trees, they started to bud again, and a few of the trees started to put forth some green leaves and take on new life after 8 months of kind of brown deadness. It began with just a couple trees, right? If you noticed, you'd be driving down the highway and you see every once in a while you'd see a tree that was starting to bud. But those first couple of trees that began to bud were forecasting that soon the entire peninsula would be lush and green like it is right now. This is exactly how the New Testament describes Jesus' resurrection. In 1 Corinthians 15, Paul tells us that Jesus is a kind of first fruit of those who would be raised from the dead. And we read yesterday in Daniel chapter 12 that all of God's redemptive purposes are going to climax in a final resurrection in which many of those who are asleep in the dust of the earth now would awake to everlasting life, and that those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky and the stars. This is our hope in life and in death. Glorified, resurrected bodies transformed in the presence of Jesus, our King, who will return one day and set all things right. So is faithful endurance worth it? It's worth losing everything for. Jesus' resurrection makes every form of suffering or hardship worth it. It makes entering into messy situations and relationships worth it. It makes saying no to temptation worth it. It makes speaking the truth of the gospel, even when we know it will cost us, it makes that worth it. Because your life is wrapped up completely in the one who died and rose again, you can endure anything for Christ's sake. So go in that grace and that confidence this week. Have a great day.